The meeting of the Dudley-Charlton Regional School Committee is now in session. It is Wednesday, September 27th. It is 7 p.m. We're at the Charlton Middle School. We will all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nobody kneeled.
At this time, I ask that you will all please join me in a moment of silence for John Pierre, who died tragically in an accident on September 22nd. John joined the district as assistant principal of Dudley Middle School in 2008 and would remain at the school, becoming principal in 2014. Just this year, he had decided to become a classroom teacher at the Charlton Middle. He was a wonderful employee who always put the students first. Equally important, he was a great friend to many of us. Our thoughts will remain with his wife, 3 children, and close family and friends. Moment of silence. Approval of the minutes. This evening, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of our regular meeting of Wednesday, September 13th. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Discussion?
You might have the same thing that I do. On page 2 under Citizens Forum, the sentence, the second paragraph is awkwardly worded. I was just wondering if you could change that, because that was just Mr. Smolsky attended the Charlton Board of Selectmen meeting and heard that the speeding traffic is concerned. So that was just, yeah, there's just missing a word.
Was that the same, Kathy?
Also, page 5 under D, the motion was made by, it should be me, well, not me, Cabell. It says P.O. Coyne, but Mrs. O'Coin now makes the motion, so it must have been, I think I did it.
Anyone else? Okay, all in favor? And we have 2 abstentions, okay? Sandy, did you get that?
Yes.
Okay. We have the minutes of the executive session of Wednesday, September 13th. I'll entertain a motion to accept them.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? 2 abstentions. Okay. Approval of the warrant. This evening, we do have a warrant that will make its way around. Citizens Forum. This evening, do we have anyone that would like to come up to speak with us? Okay. And that brings us to School Spotlight, Charlton Middle School. And Mr. Gesto, do you want to say anything?
Sure, thank you, Mrs. O'Coin. I'll just simply turn it over to Mr. Packard, and he's brought some of his best and brightest with him tonight, so I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you, Mr. Desto, and good evening, everyone. I kind of feel a little light here. I don't have any lead-in music like the middle years, so as we're getting ready to talk about a topic that I think is near and
We
dear
could
to all
sing.
of us. I can't sing, but unfortunately, I could try, but I think the ratings may go down just a little bit. But I'm very pleased with the way Charlton Middle School has started off the school year. We have a lot of great things happening, but the one thing we really wanted to key upon for our spotlight was digital learning. And digital learning, as you all know, has really taken off over the last few years. Digital learning, it doesn't have any barriers when it comes to curriculum. It engages students, and it makes learning fun. So what we're looking to do tonight is I have my computer science expert, Mrs. Manser, here, along with some budding young computer scientists who are going to help the school board members navigate through an activity of coding. It's a really neat activity, so if I could at this point in time, I'd like to introduce Ms. Manser. Come on up, and can I please bring up all of our young budding computer scientists? Come on over. We're going to get you guys to be situated right behind each school committee member. And I'm going to take this opportunity to let Ms. Manser speak a little bit about what she does and how she brings this curriculum alive through digital learning. So,
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for your ongoing support. I have some handouts that I'd like to give you. In 2013, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics stated that, or projected that by 2020, there would be 1.4 million new IT jobs, or new computer science jobs, with only 400,000 U.S. educated candidates to apply for them. That doesn't mean that they won't get filled, it just means that other options need to be pursued for that. And based on that, there has been an ongoing movement to promote computer science within the schools, within different districts, all over the world, actually. These handouts, they show what IT jobs there are. When people see IT, they think of coding, just programming. But there are so many other jobs, and this is from the U.S. Bureau as well, and this has the different jobs, their description, the baseline degree requirements, and the median salary. And what you'll see on these is that the median salary for IT jobs is about $45,000 more than the median salary for all other jobs. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about my curriculum. My curriculum changes based on standards from the DESE, the group that I'm teaching, because I teach 5 through 8, and some years I have some of those, some years I do not, as well as the software that we're running. For example, I had to employ Google tools recently. So I was working on a Microsoft suite, pretty much, Excel, Word, etc. But now with the Google tools and the fact that all students have Google accounts, I've had to switch some of that, move some of that over to Google. So I'm still teaching Microsoft Office, but now I'm teaching Google as well, and allows them to make the comparison and use the tools they need to submit their homework, etc. So the DESE standards came out 2016, and they are moving more from application-based to general IT, networking, databases. These are all things that they expect students within the 3 to 8 range, grades 3 to 8, to understand more of. So the curriculum has had to expand to incorporate those. Coding is another one. Networking, like I said, databases. And then, of course, you have the responsibility, digital responsibility, copyright, and all of that, which also needs to be taught. One of the exposures that I think we have in the district is typing. I don't know how many people took typing courses where the teacher walked around and dictated for you, but I'm noticing that a lot of students coming up through the district, when they come to grade 5, I do typing, and I do it the old drill sergeant way. And the expectation is that they will touch type. Unfortunately, since I don't have grade 5 this year, they're not getting typing. Grade 6 I don't have this year, they don't get typing, and I'm not sure exactly what they're doing at Heritage. I do believe we're now starting to go towards a platform, a free platform, typing.com, but what I'm finding with that is that they're still hunt and peck. They're still doing this, which means that they're not able to concentrate on and process, because they don't have the automaticity, or the muscle memory that allows them to simply think while they're typing. So I just wanted to mention that to you. So we have been trying different things besides the curriculum. Code.org. Now, in December, the second week of December is always CS Ed Week. Computer Science Education Week. And it was done that way because that's the anniversary of Admiral Grace Hopper's birthday. And with that, there is code.org. Now, code.org was a grassroots development, and what they came out in 2013 with a platform where everybody could learn to code. And it's very simple, and it goes from the simple now to the complex. Every year they generate new activities. And so every year we do an hour of code. So 6 days, because I have 3 cycles, 2 days each cycle. So for 6 days, that's all we do. We do coding. It helps them develop logic and a series of other skills. So what we're going to do tonight, and I think you'll have fun with this, is we are going to look at code.org. And we're going to look at the initial activities, one of the initial activities they came out with. And before we get into code.org, which is currently on your screens, okay, we're doing the Angry Birds versus the pig. And before we get into that, though, we'd like to show a video that explains to you what this is going to look like, why we are doing this. And we have our budding computer scientists who will be here to help you go through the activities. And we'll go maybe up to 6 activities or so, maybe 5 minutes to get you familiar with the block coding.
I was in 8th grade when I learned to program.
I first learned how to make a green circle and a red square appear on the screen.
You just learn these lessons, and there aren't that many of them, and you just eventually can get to the point where you can do almost anything that you want.
Computer science is just learning how a computer works and how it thinks so that you can teach it to do new things.
These days, what you can do in computer science is pretty much amazing.
I think it's the closest thing we have to a superpower.
In the next hour, we're going to play a game that will teach you the basic concepts of programming. Usually programming is all in text, but we'll use Blockly, which uses visual blocks that you drag and drop to write programs. Under the hood, you're still creating code. To start off, we're going to build code for a program that will help this angry bird move through a maze to get to the evil pigs that stole its eggs. Blockly is split into 3 main parts. On the left is the bird's maze, where your program will run. The instructions for each level are written below the maze. This middle area is the toolbox, and each of these blocks is a command that the bird can understand. The white space on the right is called the workspace, and this is where we'll build our program. If I drag the move block to our workspace and press run, what happens? The bird moves forward 1 box on the grid. And what if I want the bird to do something after the move forward on 1 box? I can add another block to our program. I'm going to choose the turn right block, and I'll drag it underneath my move block until the yellow arrow appears. And then I'll drop it, and the 2 blocks will snap together. When I press run again, the bird will perform the commands that are stacked from top to bottom on our workspace. If you ever want to delete a block, just remove it from the stack and drag it to the trash can. After you've hit run, you can always hit the reset button to get the bird back to the start. Now let's get those pigs.
Game on. Here we go.
And with that, would you all
Let's step in, let's come
step
around.
in? And at this point, you will.
Yeah, come on. You want to sit down? You're gonna have to, I'm gonna need to. So what do we, so X, should I get out of this?
You want to press OK. Yeah. Where the bird is still supposed to do.
So what is the, just, can I do it? Okay. Okay, so now she said drag, okay.
What it's telling you to do.
So I'm trying to catch the pick, okay.
It's telling you the instructions up here, so what it wants you to do is mark to, so the,
Put one of these.
yes, you're gonna want to put another move forward block so that he moves forward.
Okay, now how do I just hold it down? Do I drag it?
Tap it, and then you drag it to the right.
At each time, right? Okay.
Sometimes you can, sometimes it'll click.
So that was easy.
So now
So you've got move forward, right? So I should, run.
Okay, I got that one.
Oh,
So I wanna
I'm
move
gonna go
forward
left.
another one, right?
No, I'm gonna go
What you
right,
do is you move forward
right,
there,
to catch it.
click, and then click again.
I have to pull this over.
Oh, here we go.
You just shove this with the mouse, is it supposed to, or you hit it first? Hit it? It's over there. You know, it's over there. Okay.
Now you have to add
Let's see what you do. You hit it and then you just.
because it's asking you.
So I gotta move this one over.
Two free spaces.
Okay.
Move forward again.
Yeah.
No,
This is my big problem, is
Then move it with
and
my-
I
okay.
have big trouble. You hit it first, right? It's like that.
oh, no, I need another one. No.
Just leave this one for return.
Oh, no, okay, so trace the path and lead me to this.
Now to the track.
I gotta move forward.
First draft.
Forward twice.
I went like this,
To get,
right?
please, right here, okay.
Right.
These were my signatures.
So that was one, so I gotta do two of
No,
those?
there's already, this now.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Twice.
And then I need a right.
And then turn right.
Okay.
I know this is my, I have to pass it off.
Gotta move forward again. Yes. I thought they were going to do this, to do all the steps, to do all the steps to get to the end, right? Do like
How
5
long have you
steps
been
at once.
doing
I thought
this?
you'd go back and just, you know, you put one. This will do it all at once.
We've done this for an hour.
So you guys can tell you, okay, just one more.
All right.
This one gets a little challenging.
I gotta, I said,
This one, the first one forward is already there, so you just kind of
right?
turn left,
Okay, here we go.
and then do turn right.
What do you want me to do? Forward for this one? No, I'm gonna move forward.
So there's already a move forward.
So he's gonna
I
go
would
to,
just do it.
yeah, so I need to turn left. Yeah.
Watch me. Okay. Should try it on? It is.
Okay, and then, so that's my left, and then the right,
Can't see what, I don't
or
think there's something else.
forward one, yep. 1 minute, coach.
Now run.
Danger, sorry.
Do I run it yet? No.
So move forward, yeah, okay.
He needs to turn right so that he can move forward one more time.
Okay, yep.
And now he just needs to move forward.
Mr. Packard, I'm almost there. I think if I hit run, we got it, right?
Oh, my, oh, show off.
We got it.
I gotta
At this,
But if my kids don't work, that's the problem.
Joe. Thank you.
Now I should be able to.
Very nice. Great
I thought we were
job.
doing so well, we
We
thought.
better not start another
Pull
one.
the plug over there.
Is it too late?
Hit a block.
And this one, we have to get rid of one of these.
Okay, let's see.
Sounds like
They
it's
get
a
more
bunch of,
complicated to go along.
wow.
And then make them one, and then you drag.
Two of them?
For sure.
Just drag all 3 of those over here.
Just a move forward, just turn left. We want to get rid of one move forward.
Oh, my
So we're
God.
gonna bring it to the track.
Yep.
And then, so, once you run this, you're pretty much there, almost there.
So then now,
That's great.
turn
This program,
Keep me off the Twitter.
this program can help younger kids or anybody.
I don't know what it is that I do.
Shows you how to code.
Hey, I can drag it.
So that's like a,
Well, I guess maybe that's.
That's what we really did. If we had typed in,
I
we
think
typed
it
move
but
forward, turn left.
you do it, but,
so when,
okay, you try it again.
sorry, I forgot the teacher, when she talked about, this is
you hold it tight, baby.
Even while we're creating
Okay, good.
So I could tell by the look on your faces that this was engaging, fun, active. The way that learning is, definitely the way the learning is heading, and it's a good opportunity for our kids to act as facilitators while showing you guys exactly, the finer intricacies of coding. So great, it was very, very much appreciated on our end. Ms. Spencer, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, they did great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate your time.
We did 5.
I'm 4.
He's about 10.
No, I'll tell you, I couldn't track it. That was mine. I couldn't track it. That was it wasn't the coding. I could do the coding. It was the tracking.
I don't like these. I like
No,
the
but usually,
I'll be through my whole hour by the
What
end of
number
this
you up
meeting.
to?
listen,
I get my, I'm talking to you right now.
I'll tell you, I don't know what I was doing with the dragging, but I can drag on my other laptop, but I'm used to a mouse. I couldn't drag on this.
I'll be at 10 by 7:30. Just don't interrupt
Always
me.
like Angry Birds. Pauline, you used to like Angry Birds, didn't you? Used to
Yeah,
play Angry
I
Birds?
used to play it all the time. We're all set.
I don't like it, play it.
Thank you so much.
All right, kids, if I can have you over here, please, thank you.
We had fun. The hardest part for me was not coding. I couldn't drag. For some reason, it wouldn't go.
You think that's how Bill Gates got started?
Yeah.
Hey, Mark Zuckerberg looked the same as he did a little kid, he didn't change one bit.
Yeah.
That was cute,
That was very cute.
nice kids.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna have to get ready for stuff. He's off in another world.
I'm doing
You've
level,
lost
I'm
him.
on level 9 right
You've
now.
lost him.
You've lost me.
Okay, that brings us up to communications. Mr. Desto.
None tonight, Mrs. O'Coin.
Okay. How about our members? Do we have any? Okay. Brings us up to superintendent's report, Mr. Desto.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Coin. Some informational stuff here tonight. First, a lot of people to thank tonight as well. I want to begin by thanking Mr. Chaplin and all those at Shepherd Hill who pitched in, and it truly was just about 100% staff and student effort to make a wonderful homecoming weekend at Shepherd Hill last weekend. All our teams were in action from noon to 9 o'clock, and all clubs were involved and represented in some way. It was a great way to bring the Shepherd Hill community together. Look forward to making this an annual tradition, not homecoming, but the way they did homecoming. Also want to remind everybody that our professional development days are next Thursday, half a day. Students do have half a day of school, October 5th. And then October 6th is a full day of professional development for staff, therefore no school for students. Mrs. Allen and Mrs. Ayers have created an outstanding professional development schedule, which was included in your package this week. The theme this year, or this particular time, is engaging students with integration. You see what I did there? We put the tech in there into the word integration. The entire theme is about helping teachers integrate technology into the standards in the curriculum. And there are too many great offerings to name, but a sampling of some of the ones that caught my eye involve using Google Apps, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, blogging, stop-motion animation, Minecraft and Pokemon, coding, and so on. It's a very impressive lineup, and many of our employees, including every single administrator, are facilitating the sessions, and I'm very proud of that. I want to thank Lorinda and Karen and all those who have stepped up to make this what we think is going to be a special day of learning for our staff. Also a reminder that tomorrow is the first large group session of our strategic planning process. It will be at 3:30 in Shepherd Hill's John Canavan Library, and we'll be reviewing the past 3 years and looking toward the next 3 to 5 years and trying to get input from as many people as we possibly can. We have what I think is an interesting and interactive agenda. We'll have a few laughs, I can guarantee you that, and we look forward to making some progress toward a cohesive plan. I also want to just take a quick moment to thank all those in our towns on the Board of Selectmen, Finance Board, town administrators, and all members of the school committee and the community who were able to come out and attend our joint meeting last Tuesday. And I want to make sure that folks in the community know that that joint financial meeting is on our YouTube channel, and it's very easy to find. You just go to YouTube and search for Dudley-Charlton Regional School District, and it takes you right there. The meeting itself was close to 3 hours long, but we've broken it into 2 videos. The first one being just an introduction and a financial presentation by Mark Abrams. If people are more interested in the dialogue, then that's the second video. And also want to thank, this is very special to me, just quickly to thank the members of the school committee and all those in the district and the community who've reached out to offer support and assistance on the loss of John Pierre. Really just a devastating loss to our district and to many of us in our personal lives as well. I've had occasion to say this often lately. When times are tough, our district community consistently comes through for one another. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to enjoy some easier times at some point in the near future, and I know that you join me in keeping John's family, 3 of whom are our students, in our thoughts and prayers. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mrs. O'Connor.
Welcome. At this time, did you want to say anything about the health insurance take-up?
I think that would be good.
Okay. In front of you now, I gave you minutes of,
It looks like the old type.
yes, the executive session that took place, the minutes of the meeting in it was 1992. What we did for Rich Carmignani. And federal law requires that upon an employee's death, his spouse and children must be allowed to continue on our health insurance for 36 months, and that's still in effect, the federal law. And the family may be charged up to 102% of the full premium rate, or if we decide to do something better for the family. And you see what we did for Mr. Carmignani. It is
The last
the
page of the
unapproved
executive.
minutes of the executive session of June 10th, the first page, and it's the last paragraph, and I think I underlined where it starts. Did it come out on, I don't know, where it says federal law, do you see it? So what are our thoughts on doing something of the same for John Pierre's family, as we did for Mr. Carmignani? Do I have anybody's thoughts on that?
Well, we're bound to give 36 months, it's just the charging of how much you
It's
would want
the-
to charge.
Right, for the benefit. Do we want to keep it 75-25?
Is it possible to take a moment to read it?
Okay, go ahead.
Would be great.
Well, I just have a question out there now. Mr. Carmignani was an administrator. Mr. Pierre was now a teacher. Is there different requirements, like the teachers get $1,000 death benefit? Is that in their contract?
Yes.
Is
that's
there a
it.
stipulate how much you have to work so many years to get that, or is it like, is there a maximum of how much you can earn?
It goes up to 4,000, actually. I'm gonna defer, maybe Sandy, do you know how many years they have to be put into the DCTA? Maybe Kevin might even know, before they get that death
I have my
benefit.
contract.
I guess we copied that for Mr. Carmignani, who was the superintendent. We copied the teacher's contract, as it says here. Kathy, we copied the teacher's contract for Mr. Carmignani.
so-
He didn't have it in his contract.
That's what I
We
thought, 'cause it says, so if the
copied.
teacher gets $1,000, and after 4 years, they get another, is that how it works? So in
Yes.
16 years, you get 4,000.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's a given, right?
Yes.
Because it's in the contract, the teacher's contract,
Yeah.
1,000.
Would it be possible to give us some time to absorb this and talk about it at the next meeting?
It's okay with me?
Yeah, because Mr., that'll be fine.
Because they're already on the 36, they would still get the 36 months anyway, so we have some
That's,
time.
yeah, federal law. yeah.
Okay.
I guess my only question is,
At
what
102%.
bill
yeah.
is being paid right now? Like say next week's the teacher's
Yep.
pay.
75-25 would have been our expectation.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I'd like to do it this evening, I thought we would, but if the majority don't, it's to decide, should we give the benefit or charge them at the 102%. What's the
Do you
feeling?
understand the situation? It's kind of like COBRA. If you lose your job, you can stay in the plan and get those rates, but you have to pay 100, I thought it was 103, but it's 102%.
I looked it
Well,
up,
it's
it said
100%,
102.
plus the 2% is like
It's
for
the
administrative fees.
administration.
I think.
It's the administrative.
So the
fee.
definitely, those five is get the insurance. Our only concern is what the percentage would be on the payment.
Might I make a suggestion? I can see that people would like to have more time, and I think that's a reasonable request, in my opinion. Might we have a motion, would the committee consider making a vote tonight to continue the 75% contribution for the next 2 weeks, and then at our next meeting, make a decision on a longer term?
Well, that's what I was asking. We don't want it to start up 100% next week.
Right,
So
not until you say so. So I think,
I'd make a motion, we continue the 75-25 split until the committee has made a decision on the future of the insurance.
okay.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion on that? Okay, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous. So we'll continue it at the next meeting. Okay, and that concludes the superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you.
Brings us to new business. Policy Review Subcommittee timeline, Mr. Desto.
Thank you, Mrs.
We
O'Coin.
do have the timeline in our packet this evening.
So, yeah, the timeline that we sent through to you yesterday, I guess what I'll say, this was brought up a few meetings ago, and okay, maybe it is time, so we must admit. And so Sandy and I drafted a timeline that we bring forward for discussion tonight. I thought, in light of the fact that this year we're renewing our strategic plan and undertaking a large budget initiative, that it might be best to spread it out over pretty much the entire school year, but of course, that's open for committee discussion. Therefore, the draft schedule you have tonight takes a methodical approach, shall we say, and we figured we can always, if we get into those meetings and see that we're moving quickly, we can always make the decision to speed it up at that time. But I thought it would be best to, unlike my usual timelines, which are way too aggressive, I thought it might be best to be conservative on this one, since everybody's got so much on their plate right now. But it is high time that we do this.
I have a question. You want him, Mr. Chalk, did you want to be on that committee again? Because I know it was the three of
Oh,
us
that's
before.
right.
We didn't have,
I mean,
it's up to you.
I could be an alternate if you want. Somebody can't make it.
You sure you don't?
Or-
We only have two, Mrs. Robin and I.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
saved it.
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
I'll take this.
I saved that place for you, otherwise Kathy
Thank
was
you so
going to do
much.
it.
Always thinking of you, Ray.
That would be fine.
So it'll be the three of us again.
People asked if Mr. Chalk might want to be on that, and I think somebody said, well, want is a strong word, but you might be willing.
He might do it.
Miss one meeting and see what happens.
And see what happens. Joe was here.
No, he wasn't.
At that
wasn't.
meeting.
No, but-
Oh, you weren't?
No, but Ray had done
But
it
I
before
thought
us.
you had said no.
I'm afraid now.
Never be
What's
asked.
coming down the road?
So the 16th to 18th now, you would want to doing but then we'll do it at night, would that be at night because of you?
As long as it's after 5, it'd be fine. Does that work for you, or?
As long as it's not either a Monday or a Wednesday, I'm fine.
Well, that's
So
even
do
better.
Tuesday or Thursday, it's fine.
Fantastic.
Okay,
So what, do we set up a date? Tuesday is, what, the 17th, or the 16th, right? Mr. Dester, how about Tuesday, the 17th?
Just taking a quick look.
Yeah,
October 17th?
that's what he has, the 16th to the 18th for the first set.
17th's good for me.
Looks good as of now.
So what time? 6?
So we're looking at the 17th?
Is that okay with you?
That's fine.
Like 6 o'clock, is that good for you, Ray?
Yeah,
Give you enough time?
that'd be perfect.
Are you gonna give us copies of those policies, or you just?
Yes, we'll provide that to you in advance.
and Kathy, you're the alternate, right?
Do you want me to be? Okay, no, I think the
No,
three of us,
we're doing
there's
the
no
three of
alternates,
us.
it's just the
Oh,
three
I
of us.
thought
There
there
are no
was
alternates.
three
No, doing
with-
the three of us.
I thought Ray, Stephanie,
Oh,
and
No,
we
she's-
have three, and Elaine, are you on?
It's just.
It was the
it's
two of
my-
us.
It
Yeah,
was
it's just-
Catherine,
and then
myself,
we put
and
Ray
Ray.
on,
Oh,
because Ray
okay.
wasn't here.
Stephanie didn't go for this one.
Oh, okay, I thought Stephanie was going for this one.
No,
District office, okay.
District office.
no.
I think you said Stephanie was on, didn't you, today?
I don't think so, not the
You
policy.
said-
She's the budget chair.
Oh, she's the budget
Yeah.
chair,
The
okay.
strategic plan.
Oh, all right.
Can we set, can we set November and December at least to just get us through the year?
Sure.
Which we always make them Tuesday at 6, is that a good pattern?
Yeah,
That'll
that's
work.
fine.
So whatever November that date is.
Either the 7th or the 14th. Maybe the 7th would be better in light of, I think our committee meeting is the 15th.
No, it's the 8th because we moved it
The
Oh,
back.
we moved it up, okay, so maybe the 14th is better then. We don't have to be out every night that week.
And then December. I don't think you had anything for December.
We're not meeting in December, I
No,
think
so we're
it's
just leaving.
January. So we're good, if we just get to November, October, November days, that's fine. Thank you.
And Stephanie, I apologize for recruiting you also.
If you want it that bad.
No, she didn't. I was getting her confused with, she's the chair of the budget committee. All right, so that's it, concludes that. Any more discussion on the timeline? Everybody all set? Okay. Director of Finance and Operations, Rich?
Thank you very much. Just a couple of items for the committee this evening. First, the donations. The Dudley Middle School's received a donation of 8 gym mats from the Webster Dudley Boys and Girls Club. At the last meeting, I had told you I would inform the committee of the actual amount donated for the international trip, and that amount was $3,745 for a student to be able to go on that trip, which is just phenomenal. And lastly, the district has started to receive donations for the John Pierre Memorial Student Support Fund. The purpose of this donation account is to help all Dudley-Charlton children have access to an enriched, well-rounded educational experience regardless of their socioeconomic status. As of the writing last week, there had been 1 donation received for $50. This evening, we have a total of $3,125 that's come into the district.
Okay, so I think we'll vote on establishing the foundation first for John Pierre.
Fund, yeah.
The fund, not the foundation, but the fund. So I'll entertain a motion to establish the fund. For John Pierre. Okay, discussion, any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous. And then we will take all the donations in one, so I will entertain a motion to approve the donations.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous.
Thank you very much. The next item is disposal of surplus materials. The Dudley Middle School has requested that 13 cafeteria tables and 163 cafeteria chairs be declared surplus. These items are in disrepair and have been sitting in storage for years.
And that means you're going to throw them away?
I see no salvage value in these, but if we can squeeze a penny out of them, we certainly will.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for the disposal of the surplus materials.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous.
Thank you very much. And just lastly was a piece of information for the committee. At the last meeting, Mrs. Sullivan had provided you with the hiring map listing the former teacher and the new teacher. I duplicated that, but included the FY18 budget amount. You know, for people that we know are going to retire while we're doing the budget cycle. We obviously plan and take advantage of those expected savings in the budget process. This list is obviously a lot longer than what we knew during the budget cycle, and that accounts for, you know, a good portion of these savings. But, you know, so far the hiring certainly has been very advantageous for the district, financially at least.
Okay, thank you. That concludes your report.
Unless there are any questions. Thank you very much.
Rich, I just want to say that the format of this report is extremely helpful, so thank you very much for changing it so that we can see what the actual differences are and so forth.
Yeah, and I think, you know, now that we're in the cycle of Mrs. Sullivan doing her version, I can do this version, and it gets the committee exactly what it's looking for, I think.
Thank you.
Okay, Budget and Finance Subcommittee report, and that's Stephanie.
Okay.
So basically, what we started talking about was, the first thing that was on the agenda was the numerous building repairs that are coming up for the schools. And then we talked about going over our regional agreement between the schools and towns, which is a good thing because I don't know what the regional agreement is with the towns and the schools. We also talked about how we need to get the message out about the 2.5 override and make sure that all the town boards are behind it, and how they need to hopefully show their support for it, for the schools, in writing and publicly. And then we talked about bringing in Mr. Horan for the subcommittee first, just to let us know, then coming to the whole committee with him, just so that we have a starting point. We don't have a starting point with him yet. And then the other thing we talked about was our options with the 2.5 override and what we can go with, which he'll also help us with. And did I miss anything?
No, I absolutely did a great job. I have a few additional things that have
Yeah.
come up from that, since then, that are related to budget and to all the things we did discuss at the subcommittee meeting, if I may, Mrs. O'Connor.
Okay.
First one, just looking at next steps for us and trying to be systematic about how we approach this. And the first thing that I've been advised by many others who have sat in my seat on such a thing, to reach out to the Office of Campaign and Political Finance at the state level and bring somebody in for a very brief overview with our school committee before we go off into this wilderness. There are a lot of things that we can do as far as disseminating information, and there are a few things that we really can't do lest we violate some of their laws. So Mr. Matthew reached out to them today, and it is possible for them to come in at 6 o'clock on October 25th ahead of our meeting, if that's favorable for the committee, and if you think that's a good idea. Then, and I have run this by, like I said, a number of other superintendents, and also Chris Horan, who's done this a variety of times, and he said, while he could do the training, and also Steve Hemman could do this training from Mars, and we could do the research ourselves and do the training ourselves if we wanted to, I really think it's best, both as a gesture and otherwise, to just get it done right from the horse's mouth and have the state come in, and they're free as well. So they can come on the 25th at 6 o'clock if everybody thinks that's a good idea. October 25th, yeah. So beyond that, Mrs. Reed already hit upon a number of things that I wanted to mention. Mr. Matthew and I have been working with the principals and Lorinda and Karen and Jeff and Dan about just looking at what our likely needs are going to be for our budget next year. And we're working on, we haven't really started actually putting together a draft budget yet. We've still got another week or so for the principals to put together some of their needs. But, excuse me, we will be working on a draft budget. I've also already reached out to the towns to schedule, I haven't solidified dates yet, but I've been working with Mr. Valiakonis and Mrs. Craver to schedule a next meeting of the chairs, as we discussed at the joint meeting. And it looks like, no, it doesn't look like, we're going to have to split it between the towns, because, not that I want to do any additional meetings, nor would Mrs. O'Coin or Mr. Chalk, but we just can't come together on a date. There's just too many things going on. So we're going to meet with Dudley and Charlton separately, and we'll try to do it as early and as quickly as we can, just to kind of work out these next steps and make sure that they're on board. And I think Mrs. Reed hit it on the head. I think it's really going to be very important that we get a public vote of support from all 5 boards. I don't think this board's going to be an issue, but I think both boards of selectmen, both boards of finance, it's going to be very important that we publicly get a vote of support, perhaps even something that we write up. We'll have to work that out with them. But I do think that that's going to be enormous going into the late fall and into the winter. And then finally, as Mrs. Reed also, I'm just repeating a lot of what Mrs. Reed said, I apologize, but we then, at that point, want to bring in Chris Horan and really devise a strategy. And I've talked to him on the phone a little bit about what that might look like, and it's kind of exciting. So, in some ways, the competitor in us looks forward to it, but it is going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of delicate work, and so we'll see. That's it.
Thank you. Any other questions before I go on?
Just a comment, in a follow-up to the meeting, follow-up to the joint meeting and some of the comments that were there. When we're looking at developing the 2019 budget, and I'm going to some of the questions that were asked regarding the town's want, I'm really answering the chair from the Board of Selectmen from Charlton, the question of what it is that we need or want. Are we framing our budget to include some of the things that we've long sought or felt were important for our students? So we have an approach that has always been extremely conservative. I don't know how other people feel, but I think it's important for us to present what it is that we feel, not overreaching, but what we really feel is the important things that we've been unable to provide up until this point in time. So are we looking at approaching the 2019 budget as we've historically done it, or are we looking to present it as that opportunity to educate? This is what we feel that we've been missing.
Yeah,
And I think
that's
it's
a good way
important
to
for
put it.
people to hear that.
I certainly welcome comments from the committee on that. It's a very important question. As I go into this right now, what I'm thinking is strategic plan and what it's gonna take to make us, achieve that level. And so what we're looking at is, as we draft a draft budget is, we're looking at those things that we have gone without. We're looking at those things that it's gonna require to make our students have an education that makes them college and career ready, as well as anybody around. And obviously we can look at, later down the line, we can look at what we have to provide for boundaries on that. But I think I agree with what you initially said, that we need to put it out there. This is what it's gonna take for us to go from where we are now to a place where, in very, very rapidly changing times, where our students can be extremely competitive.
Through the chair, I think one of the things that are presenting this is we have to ask for, as you just said, what we absolutely need. That's our baseline. And we could always throw an a la carte thing and saying, for this much more, we can get this item that we've, cut from the budget for the past 5 years, and possibly do that. But we can't start at a baseline that's not gonna give us what we need. We just gotta go up from there.
And I think at the meeting, it sounded like everyone agreed, almost everyone was on the same page as far as, hey, we know that you have a lot of needs in order to get to where your plan is to go, so go for it. That's kind of what I heard. I don't know what you guys heard.
Yeah, but I think you said, if you set it too high, then
of course.
you run the risk of not getting anything.
Yeah.
Well, I think the key is to be able to explain why we're asking for what we're asking for.
Absolutely.
And we're able to do that. So when we put our plan together and we put numbers to what we're trying to do, and we are able to explain it to people, then I think we'll get support in that way. I think the problem resides when people don't understand why we're asking for the finances. And we're being very transparent, and through all of these planning meetings, we're going to be able to basically line item what we're asking for, so we should be in good shape.
But again, to reiterate on that, I think we have to also train the other people, whether it be select boards or finance committees, that they're saying the same thing, and they understand why they're saying it. So it's very important just to let people know why.
Through the chair, just a couple of follow-up things that I wanted to say is, I think that I'm prepared to be in a situation where we're going to put forth what it is that we envision the district to be. And I think we were very well educated that there are going to be some clear, difficulties on the parts of the town to provide that. So I think it serves us in the best interest to present to them what it is that we're looking for, what we feel represents the education that the people, the communities want. And somewhere in that, we're still probably going to go through and redline some of those things, because realistically, we have to, we have to tell people what it is that it looks like, and then we have to come to the table and say, this is where we feel, how much we're gonna be able to move forward on that based on the realities. So I wanna start at that point knowing that we're going to be able to use it as an education point, and then realize that we're still not going to always be able to have everything that we want. But I know in our subsequent conversations, we haven't really discussed some of the things that we've typically relied on, and school choice comes to mind as one of those things that we've used as a real financial benefit to our budget. But when we're presenting that budget, if we remove the things that people also don't want us to be doing, so really going extremely into our reserves, relying on school choice to be able to fund our operating budget, things like that, those should all be components of what we put together. I think it's important for the towns, as we've started this process with Mr. Abrams' report, educating them to the financial piece, to really have that full picture for them. I think it helps our conversations going forward, and might help us with what people now feel that they can support.
Mrs. O'Coin, if I may, just one more comment, I promise. To get back to something that Mrs. Antasi said, I think one of the key elements of our message is going to have to be the difference between the perception that this is something that we just want.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that we need, but when we're talking about our students and our children, this is what we've got to provide them. If by any means necessary, we've got to try to be able to provide them with the best possible education. We've done a great job through the years. A lot of the credit for that resides at this table with this school committee, in being able to just provide an incredible education on a shoestring budget. But as we've said 100 times before, we're getting to the point where those two things are having difficulty intertwining anymore because of the way modern education is. And so we've got to put out a message where we say, this is our vision for what our students should have, and this is what we're going to go for. And I think that I want to get people very excited about what we could be.
Mm-hmm.
I get excited thinking about it.
Anything else? Okay, next on the agenda is legislative update, and I believe that's Elaine.
Yes, I attended the Mass Association of School Committees Regional Schools Committee meeting last Thursday night, and the focus of the agenda was a legislative update, and there's at least 12 pieces of legislation related to education that they felt were important to give us an update. All of the legislation has been heard and is sitting, and the Education Subcommittee has not reconvened to act on anything at this point in time. So most of the bills have been heard and they're sitting. There is a very important piece of, well, there's several pieces of legislation that are, I think, very important to our towns. One of them is related to out-of-district vocational transportation, which I know is a big issue for both Dudley and Charlton. That has been filed, heard, and waiting to be acted on. There's also several pieces related to regional stabilization funds, but the piece of legislation that we have brought forward and talked about on several occasions is an act establishing a special commission to study regional school district foundation budgets. The State Auditor's Office actually has done a very large, thorough analysis of regional school districts' budgets. And there is a report that is pending that talks about the gross underfunding, discrimination of regional school district budgets. So the State Auditor's Report is going to shed a lot of light on this. And what the Regional Schools Committee is asking is that regional school committees now look to put a letter of support out and file it with Senator Chandler, who filed the bill, and our own representatives to make sure that this gets acted on and moved, so that we can get the commission established, so that we can put more light on the issues that we're having. So that's where we're going to get our long-term fix on our budgets. So the committee is actually doing some draft language for us to be able to use, but I'd like to ask for the committee to take a vote to act in support of this by authorizing Mr. Desto to write a letter, and then getting it sent into our legislators to ask them to act and put their support behind this commission when the bill comes out of hearing.
Okay, Elaine, you can make the motion.
So, I make a motion that we ask Mr. Desto to act on our behalf to write a letter of support for S-263, an act establishing a commission, no, sorry, wrong number, Senate Bill 217, establishing a commission on regional school district foundation budgets, filed by Senator Chandler, and that we will work with it. The state auditor's report should be coming out in early October. So I just wanted to have this ready so that we can put this in place.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, any more discussion on it? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous.
Thank you.
And that concludes your report, Elaine?
Yes.
Okay, and that brings us to MCAS 2.0 update, Mr. Desto.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Coin. So oftentimes by now, we're talking about MCAS scores and reports and those kinds of things, and so it occurred to us that probably we should give you an update on where things stand, and they are delayed a little bit more than usual. So there's a lot of uncertainty right now, as everybody knows, at the state level regarding standardized testing, but the bottom line is that the Department of Education is hoping to have accountability levels, schools and districts accountability levels, released publicly by October 24th. So public school report cards and scores from the spring testing should be available to the public sometime in mid-November. I believe that's an all-time record for how late in the season we're receiving that information, and that's not to criticize anybody, that just is a fact. Now, one of the big keys for us has been, as part of the transition to the computer-based testing, that students this year in grades 4, 5, 7, and 8 will be expected to take computer-based MCAS tests. Do I have that correct, Mrs. Allen? And they'll be expected to take those in ELA, math, and science. So, well, science is only for 5 and 8, but it's 4, 5, 7, and 8. So we're adding 2 grades from what we had to do on computers last year. So that leaves only grades 3, 6, and 10 district-wide who don't have to test on computers. And districts may elect to have their schools do either computer-based or paper-based testing. And so I think a year ago today, I would probably have said to you that we're going to go paper-based on those grade levels. I put into your package a listing that looks like this of, in large part because of the action of this committee, we were able to secure a lease for an infusion of technology that enables us to be able to do computer-based testing in all those grade levels with the exception of grade 10. So Principals Pastore and Seibold have talked, and they agree that they wish for their grade 3 students to take the computer-based test and just get a head start on it and get used to it. The middle school principals, I learned today, have also discussed, and they're leaning toward having all their grade levels test on computers as well. That hasn't been, there's no signed, sealed, and delivered on that, but it's where we're leaning. So that would leave just grade 10, and that's something that I haven't yet talked with Mr. Chaplin about, but I will in the near future. And the high schools, as it says in your package, need to be prepared to administer computer-based field tests in ELA and math this coming spring, and there'll be a tryout of computer-based science items in June. So it's going to, by next year at this time, almost certainly, we're all going to be on computer. But this year, we're probably going to be 90%, and the grades that don't have to, we just feel we have the equipment, let's get them used to it and just make this the norm, the new normal. So that's really it. I just wanted to give you a brief update, and I will do the best I can with any questions that you might have.
question? No, just a comment to thank Mr. Matthew for coming up with the creative solution to this, because we wouldn't be able to do this if we hadn't had that inspirational
Absolutely.
challenge, resolution to our challenge with technology, so, thank
You know,
you.
and maybe it shouldn't be so exciting to me, but if you follow our schools on Twitter, you see all the things that are happening that weren't happening 2 years ago, and of course, things change any time in history, but very proud of our staff and our administrators for really making an effort to move things forward and use the kinds of tools that our students speak the language of. So.
I have a question. The 10th graders are the last class that is taking the old MCAS, is that true?
They are taking the old MCAS, but they have some field test questions or something.
So is there any benefit to them taking it on the computer after all of this time?
At this point, in my opinion, and having to talk to Mr. Chaplin briefly today, we're leaning towards letting this class do the last time paper-based. You know, that's the format that these kiddos are used to. They're not gonna have to do this moving forward. So we're leaning towards letting them finish this out paper-based. And then next year's sophomores will be the first group of 8th graders that had taken it computer-based.
Yeah.
And it just seemed to make sense then, when they transition to the new test, to transition to the new format at the same time.
That does seem to make sense. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, that brings us up to our next meeting dates. School Committee, Wednesday, October 11th, and that will be at Shepherd Hill Regional High School. Wednesday, October 25th, Charlton Middle School, both at 7 p.m.
25th, we just said 6, didn't we?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, on the Wednesday, October 25th, we changed it to 6 p.m. So make a note of that. Budget and Finance Subcommittee, Thursday, October 19th, that's at the district office, and it's at 9 a.m. Wage and Benefits Subcommittee, Nurses Negotiations, that will be to be announced. Strategic Planning Meeting is one tomorrow, September 28th, and that's at 3:30. So cross out that 7 o'clock. It's at 3:30 until 6.
So is the next one.
And October 5th, Charlton Middle School, cross out the 7, it's at 3:30 again. Future agenda items, FY 2019 budget, overnight travel chaperone authorization, CPAC, and then Mary, you did ask for the MASC on this one, we'll do it next time.
Okay.
I guess we forgot to put it on, I just thought of that, the resolutions.
resolutions.
Yeah.
I haven't received my copy yet unless it
I
came
did.
today.
We got in the mail.
Not that I get
Yeah.
to vote, but it's good to read them over.
Did you?
I just, yeah, not, maybe a little, yeah, but I did get mine, okay? Anything else, any other that you
To
can
revisit
think
the
of?
insurance.
Okay, the insurance that we were talking about.
Yep.
Anything else? All right. Now, at this time, we will enter into executive session to discuss strategy with the respect to collective bargaining, when an open session may have detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body. I will take a roll call. Joe?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And Stephanie? Yes. Okay. We will reconvene only to take votes if needed, and then we will adjourn. Okay?